good morning. For those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Jeff Schrader, and I am the Jefferson County Sheriff. I've been so for about 3 years. I did start with the Sheriff's Office back in 1984, working in the county jail, and I've got to the point where I just really have a passion. I want to see Jefferson County to be a safe place for all people to live, learn, work, and play. So in regard to the Sheriff's Office, just to give you a little bit of a perspective, it's the largest full-service Sheriff's Office in the state of Colorado. Now that's not necessarily comparable to some Sheriff's Offices in other parts of the country, but there's 829 employees, 300 volunteers support us, and there's 1,399 prisoners in the county jail this morning. So it's no small operation, and sometimes people say, what could go wrong? Right? And the reality is sometimes things do. The other question that I get on occasion is, what keeps you up at night? And I imagine small business owners in here, Don Rozier keeps me up at night. That was a scary thought. But that question does come up from time to time. About 3 weeks ago, it was the phone that kept me up one night. The undersheriff was unavailable, so a call came into me, and the division chief of patrol was out, so I got an advisory on a call. And the nature of this call, and I don't typically like to talk about cases that have an ongoing investigative aspect to them, but this one does, but there's a point I'd like to make with it. Down in South Jefferson County, there was a couple, a guy and a gal, who were in a bar drinking, socializing, and they were encountered by some folks that maybe the guy had known in the past, and so they had a couple drinks together. Well, the guy and the gal decided that they were going to go ahead and leave. The other folks went with them and said, hey, can you give us a ride? Well, they agreed to give them a ride to another location because they didn't have a car with them. They were going to take them to a place in Inglewood. And while they were driving northbound on Wadsworth from this bar, something went wrong in that car, and the guy who was seated behind the driver, the male driver, put a knife to his neck. And at the same time, the guy who was seated behind the female passenger put his arm around her neck and started to choke her. And she was scared, rightfully so. But the point of the story is this, is that by her own statement, she had made a determination that if things were going to go terribly wrong that night, they were not going to be at the hand of somebody else, but that she was going to take control. So as they were heading down the road on Wadsworth Boulevard at 50 miles an hour, she undid her seatbelt after the assailant had removed his hand from her neck, and knowing that she only had about 20 seconds before the seatbelt alarm went off, she knew that she had to act quick. She opened the door and threw herself out onto the roadway. Now she's okay, a little bit injured, but what was inspirational to me was the point that she was not going to die at somebody else's hand, that she might make her own choice, if it came to be. Obviously it wasn't, and we're thankful for that. But that's how we like to approach stuff, is we don't always get to deal with the circumstances that we'd like, but we'd like to take control of those to the very extent that we can. We try to do that in the Sheriff's Office, and I'm going to talk to you about a program where I'm going to encourage you to do that for your business here in just a moment. But so there's some things, some circumstances in our community that we don't have a whole heck of a lot of control over. I don't have a whole heck of a lot of control over what the jail population is. It ends up at 1,399 today. My jail capacity is actually 1,379. I still have to deal with it. We have to come up with a plan to work through that. we have an opioid crisis that's going on in our community. We had hoped that we would get some grant funding to put Narcan in all of our patrol cars. We did not. But we know that this problem has grown even into Jefferson County to the point where last year, countywide, there were 60 deaths associated with opioids. And that number's going up this year. We put Narcan in our cars. We decided that that's the right thing to do. If this crisis is growing and continuing to grow, our objective is to save lives, that we're going to have Narcan in the car because often a deputy sheriff is going to be the first person who's able to get on scene of an emergency, sometimes and many times faster than the fire department. I know the fire department also has a tool like that with them. And so we have begun saving lives, 3 of them last month. But that's the crisis that we deal with. But we have circumstances that we have to face and we have to deal with them. And I want to tell you that you all know that you have circumstances and challenges on a daily basis, and sometimes you don't want to have to get distracted with the safety aspects, but I'd like to encourage you to think about those for your business. And this week is a good week to think about that. I'm sure most people would agree. Oh, I just saw my name on the top of this. That's kind of funny. I didn't expect that. My mom would be so proud right now. But this is an announcement for the JCSO Business Academy. We have never done one of these before. It's a little bit of an experiment, but not really, because we have some people who've been doing instruction in terms of crime prevention for a long time. And then also we have some guys who are award-winning instructors in a program called Run, Hide, Fight. And that's what to do when somebody assails a business or a government property or some store. Strategies that people can use in their own daily lives to react to situations that come up. We've provided this actually to 2,800 county employees. And that's where some of the awards that they have received have been. But starting October 12th, and then on the 19th and the 26th, just for 2 hours each day, I'd like you to consider participating in the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office Business Academy. It's in our headquarters. Please call and make a reservation for that. We're going to talk about fraud and ways that you can combat that. But we're also going to talk about how we can personally protect ourselves, how we can be proactive and take control of the situations that might come up. Hopefully they won't, but we want people to be prepared. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And
can they ask any questions?
You can ask any question.
Does anyone have any questions? This is the Jeffco County Sheriff.
Yes, ma'am.
On the Narcan, is it possible to tell us what the cost is, and is that per dose? How much would you carry to be helpful?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily per dose,
Okay.
but we put kits together. We've purchased the Narcan, 2 utilizations in each of the kits, and then the container for the kits that we've purchased, and I think the net cost is about $160 a kit. And the product in those kits has to be replaced each year, so there's an ongoing cost. I don't want to say it's the biggest expense in terms of what we have, and it's very worthwhile. It's about $15,000 a year for us, but it's a smart investment, I think. And unfortunately, you have people who are doing harm to themselves and then need help. And my hope is that we save their life and that they get their life on track and that they ultimately become productive in our society. But thanks for the question. Anything else? Well, thank you for the oh, yes, ma'am.
Do you guys offer any type of self-defense classes for Jefferson County?
We don't typically offer self-defense classes, but what I would encourage you to take a look at is this program and the Run, Hide, Fight. which is really an element of personal protection, business protection, something that could be along that way. And then we'd encourage people to find their own resources. There's probably a business in here that teaches some of those kinds of things, right?
Good plug, thank you.
I'm an honorary ambassador to that.
Thank you for offering the academy. Must one attend all 3 sessions?
Well, we would encourage it, but it's not like we're going to not graduate yet. Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Gretchen.
After you save someone with the narcan, is there any follow-up on your part? I mean, for that person?
Well, in terms of on our part, so sometimes our role extends only to the interaction that we have with somebody. But then there's other times that our interaction with somebody is ongoing just by the nature of our contacts. So we don't necessarily always get feedback on how well somebody's doing unless we just happen to know. We do have some crisis intervention technique trained deputy sheriffs that do maintain contact with some folks when there's been ongoing crisis, typically when there's a mental health crisis that goes on with somebody. So we don't always know that. One of the other things, though, that we do in that regard is anybody who has an opioid addiction who transitions out of the Jefferson County Jail meets with a mental health transition planner. And one of the programs that the mental health transition planner also administers is the issuance of Narcan on an individual basis for people who have had an addiction. We've verified to the extent that we can that they've had that addiction, because when they go back out from being in custody and being sober for 30, 60, 90 days, they go back to their old habit and they don't have the same tolerance. They may take a dose that they were used to at one point, but they aren't anymore. So we also issue to people on an individual basis. We wouldn't necessarily have contact with those. But we have an exciting program that's coming on that I'm excited about, and I wish people didn't even have to know about this stuff. But it's a product called Vivitrol, where it's an injectable. And it safely takes people down as they transition out of jail, and hopefully to the point of permanent sobriety. Yeah. Well, thank you all. It's a great opportunity to be. Yes, sir.
Who do we make a check out to for that specific thing?
Well, we've funded it through our budget, and so we do take donations to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, or not to me. But we could talk about that. But we do have a donation account that could be supported. Yeah. Thank you very much.